Hello everyone and welcome back to the MMO Roundtable. This is Real Estate Part 2, and again this video is going to be shorter than the last, as our intentions are to try to keep these around 30 minutes each.
Yeah, we failed last time.
And we failed miserably. But okay, Zach, you said you had some additional points.
Yeah, earlier on I had talked about, and let me get focused back over here, about farms, and I wanted to talk about those specifically because I had some ideas that I think would be very, very cool to implement, even if they eventually get shot down or if we just decide they're not feasible. And that is that, okay, first off, let me just jot this down. We've already mentioned, or at least I said in the previous video, that I'm using the term farm in a really generic sense.
Yeah.
It could mean anything. It could mean a mine. It could mean
farming
a group of livestock.
For something or
it's a producing tract of land.
Yeah, the idea is that some resource that you would normally gather is now available on your land with a set respawn time.
Or I'm making it even more general in my head. If you happen to build a forging device there, you don't have to go into a town.
Sure, yeah. It's just it's a way to keep you from having
producing tract of land.
Yeah.
In some way, be it through respawns from plant growth or mining or whatever.
It prevents having to leave. You can get what you need from your land, at least to some degree. But I know we're trying not to let this fall into discussions of characters. But even if we decide to come up with a character system that doesn't have levels, I think it'd be cool if farms themselves or whatever your farm is had some sort of a level. Of course, it doesn't have to be experience based. I'm thinking this would be something that you upgrade. You start off with your basic tract of land, and let's say you decide to plant an apple orchard. I don't know why you'd want an apple orchard, but it's a good example.
You like apple pies. I mean, come on.
Exactly. You just love those frickin' apple pies. But when you first get it, it's just really a block of dirt. Okay, so you buy your apple seeds, you get them planted, and your yield comes from a lot of different things. It's like, well, if I put an irrigation system in, then my trees would be healthier and I'd get more apples out of it. So that's an upgrade. I just leveled up my farm by installing that. If you treated it the same way, then you could have your farms be upgradable so that, you have a reason to invest in them, to invest time in them. That increase in level could also increase your upkeep, which is cool because it also, in turn, would increase your yield, and I like that. Am I spelling that right? I think it's I first.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, it's one of those things. But at the same time, and this goes back to, I talked about fortifications earlier. Are you going to allow people to attack your land? Because if you have farms, what's the biggest reason we ever had, pillaging of land? It was to get whatever somebody else had. That was the first thing you do when you're conquering land. Is you get those farms, man. You take their livestock. You burn their grain to the ground or something, because that's a huge blow to someone. If you were to allow that, then I think it adds a really interesting dynamic. Yes, it allows for the possibility of griefing and all that sort of thing, because while, you have ganking in our current MMOs, and the cool thing about ganking is you can always run away. Your land, however, is kind of stapled in place, and you can't really get away from that. But I thought of a cool way to handle this, and this is because I've played games like Evany, which is really just exactly what I'm describing here. You have land which does stuff, and you have to kind of defend it. This would be a good reason to have fortifications as a possibility, so that if you did allow this sort of thing to happen,
here you go. How about hiring NPC cards?
And that's something that I have in my notes as well, but you could also kind of lump them into the fortifications thing. It's just AI-driven fortifications that run around your land and swing swords. And that's all algorithmically based anyway. But something else, because this wouldn't be everybody's thing. One of the things I hated about Evany, really, really hated, was that I could turn my back for 20 minutes and my entire town could be just destroyed, razed, burned to the ground. And they had a means to get out of it. They have a truce flag that you can throw up. And this generally costs you money because in the end, in Evany, they want you sitting there staring at your screen all the time. And while that's cool, I think it's maybe a little harsh. So what if you allowed for the attacking of your farms, you had an equivalent to WoW's PvP flag, where you could have, and I don't even want to call it that. I would call this risk return settings on your land. You could think of this like a slider, where you have a high risk, HISC, thank you, high risk combined together in one word, and you have a low risk. Let me write high and low. Dang it.
There we go.
You know what I meant.
Yep.
And okay, so high risk, if you put your slider all the way up here, your land can be attacked. People can come in here and they can grab, and they can kill all your sheep. They can burn your stuff to the ground. They can go take the apples out of your trees. Mm-hmm. But if you pull it down here, they can't do any of that. On the flip side of that, this has a really high yield of what you can get out of it, and this has a really low yield of what you can get out of it.
That's interesting.
So you can crank up the risk factor of what's possible by allowing people to come in and attack you. But in return, as long as you can keep it defended, or maybe you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're fortunate enough that nobody's found you and wants to rape and pillage your land, but you get more out of it.
I'd say tie that in with your upkeep too.
Sure, absolutely. Everything just kind of increases, but you still want to make sure that it stays balanced so it's worth someone's while to have a high-risk area if they can keep it defended. Yeah,
that's what I was talking about. Your upkeep would be significantly lower and high. So it'd be almost like you could put it as a story. So high risk means you're not paying the local police agency to go out and keep a check on your land.
Sure.
So it gets rated more. Where if you've got low, you're paying people to always check on it. So your upkeep or your taxes for that tract of land is much more expensive.
And that also brings up, the whole reason or one of the big reasons for the upkeep is that land can never be reclaimed. But if a high risk meant that there was little to no upkeep, that land could be reclaimed.
Well, my first question with this is, all right, let me say this first, just because it's so tightly related. Because when you mentioned PvP flags, and we had talked not too long ago about, wouldn't it be cool if, I think it was Uzak that brought this up, if you had two guilds that were on the same faction.
I so don't want to spoil that until we start talking about guilds specifically.
Sorry, but
it's okay. If we have to, we have to.
Where basically the two guilds, look at them as two gangs. If they wage war on each other, so both guilds have accepted the fact that there's war, at that point I say that land that they own, guild land, is automatically attackable by the other side.
Sure.
Automatically. I wonder even if, because again, it's waged war to the point of, like we've discussed with some of our towns and cities with NPCs and people coming in and being able to really take over that town.
Right.
What if you were able to have a guild go and kick another guild's butt because they're at war with each other, but actually take over?
Right. Well, you're kind of incorporating Ebony into the game at that point. Because in Ebony, instead of the concept of guilds, they call them alliances. And two alliances can be at war with each other. And if you're at war with an alliance and they've got a plot of land nearby you, all bets are off. You can send your troops right on in.
So I just wanted to throw that out real quick because I know we've talked about it. And the bottom line is if two guilds both agree that they're waging war against one another, it's war. Everything should be wide open in that particular case.
Here, to expand on that a little bit, where you use the guild war or the gang war type thing and having the land go. But if you're a member of that guild, you're kind of known. So you could be targeted as part of the guild, or you could be targeted as an individual going around. What about your own private land at that point? Is that still
I was thinking they could come into your town area and beat your butt, but depending on how you have your high-low setting, if we went with something like that, that would still dictate that land. I'm thinking guild land.
I would say that you could never just declare war on a person.
Yeah,
I think that promotes too much hate in the game.
I'm just saying because you are a member of a guild. Something that happened in EVE, is when those guilds went to war, if you were a known member of that guild, you would be specifically targeted, and they would look for people that were out on their own and just go and kill them.
Right, and I have a lot of thoughts just on the treatment of guilds. In fact, I don't even like the term guild.
Yeah.
I hate it. But I realize why they couldn't call them what they are. They are gangs. It's just that term has such a negative connotation these days that you don't want to say, hey, play our game, join a gang. It's just.
But we might get a whole different group of players.
Look at APB though.
Yeah, exactly. But switching back over to this, I think, Lee, I see exactly what you're saying. Is if I was, we're in Jimbo's guild, and if Jimbo's guild waged war on some other guild, let's say I haven't even played the game in a while.
Right.
I mean, this applies in real world right now. I get back in. I would hate to find my place destroyed.
Yeah.
I would think that guilds can attack other guild property, and even as far as take it over, I think would be kind of cool. But on an individual basis, if we employed something like Zach's talking about with high-low here, I think that's what should be respected for an individual's personal property.
Right.
All right, that's my thought. But continue with
the other thing too, though, is that I still don't really mind there being some level of responsibility if you are to walk away from the gang. Mm-hmm. So, you could say if my guild is hostile to your guild, mm-hmm. but I'm going to walk away from the game for a while, then I run the risk of losing my land. And if the responsible thing to do would be like, guys, I'm not going to be able to play for the next X number of months. I'm going to go ahead and temporarily drop the guild. That way, the guild hostilities rule is completely null and void.
Well, that does also bring up another dynamic, though. If you're a large property owner and your guild decides to go to war and you don't agree with it and you're worried about losing your land,
leave the guild. True. Leave the guild.
You can go, well, no, I'm out, and drop the guild.
That's true.
Exactly. And that's why I'm saying that I think the guild hostilities ideal should supersede this setting.
Okay.
So if you're in a guild and you have your settings on low, but the guild suddenly goes to war with another guild, members of that guild could attack you because, well, you're flying the other gang's colors.
Attack your property.
I'm sorry. They can attack your property. Exactly. If you don't want that to happen, then basically it's too hot for you in this kitchen.
Okay.
Get out of the guild and then leave it to your own personal settings.
Yeah, and that would make
makes sense.
Going to war a lot heavier decision.
True. Leonard, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that would probably work. Dropping guilds, because a lot of the time, if you're a landowner yourself, unless you really agree with what the guild is doing, I would agree to just drop it to protect yourself.
Yeah.
But if you're really agreeing that, yes, the guild should do this and it's worth the risk, I'm going to risk my land. I'll stay with it.
Yeah. Okay.
But maybe it shouldn't go all the way to high. Maybe it should go to medium.
So here's the thing, though.
I'd have the pole position settings where you just have low and high. But how do you determine medium?
That they could maybe attack and not take over, or maybe attack and not destroy.
Honestly, I would make that call globally for all land that can be attacked. Either, because one way to look at it is, okay, so somebody could take over your land, take over your farm, or they could destroy what's there and give you a heck of a repair bill. But as long as you're paying your tax or whatever, it's still going to be your land.
But you made it a slider. Slider means that there are more than
that's
two.
Why I'm the frickin' artist here, so I could draw it as a knife switch now if I want to. So now it's a knife switch. It's just it's moving on its way to the up position, so I've got to draw motion arrows now. There you go.
Single pull, double throw. Anyway.
Well, see, it depends. If you're always going to keep the land, that's one thing. But there is if you can gain and lose land, that's another reason to go to war. Is I'm going to war. Yeah, I'm risking my land, but I might come out of this with even more land if we win.
Right. And at the end, only because we brought it up, one of the things that Jason and I had talked about previously, and whoa.
Oh, did I? Hang on. Make sure. Now try.
Okay, yeah. Something just broke for a second. Yeah. One of the things we had talked about, and this ties a little bit, almost too heavily into how guilds work, is the idea of being able to call on your guild in times of distress, kind of like a panic button. But see, that becomes more important to a guild in terms of land.
Yeah, for sure.
Because your land, if you're part of the guild, the land you own could be a huge benefit to the guild in a lot of different ways. Maybe your land produces something, or maybe there is, globally, a benefit that we have coded into the system based on how much land the guild controls. So maybe as a guild member, you're encouraged to own land because we all get a benefit from how much land you own.
Right.
It could be something like that. Now, in that case, you could have a system tied into this where the system says, land is under attack, would you like to go defend it? So, land attack warning.
And we got to be careful here, and I know you know this,
Yes.
because this is also a discussion that we can bring up coming up very soon with travel.
I'm going to say teleport, but I'm going to put a question mark by it.
Stab you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're starting to infringe on, and it's only because Nelson's never been caught in a situation where somebody in the game has made him so mad because he's been ganked repeatedly.
Yeah.
And you're calling your friends for help, and they're like, "Where are you? Where I'm trying to come. I'm trying to come." And
Well,
we had that discussion before, didn't we? The one where you could warp one friend in, and that friend can warp somebody else in.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about all kinds of things in this regard. But, okay, maybe even if it was nothing more than a warning with a specific location saying, hey, get your ass to this guy's land. The other gang is currently raiding it. Even that might be something.
only if you had communications installed on your land.
There you go.
No, that's just a second perk.
Sure.
But at this point, now we're getting, because what I'm about to bring up, you're probably going to hate me for it.
I hate you already.
Yeah, I know.
Go ahead.
When you are a guild member and another gang member comes and starts stacking someone else's land, and you get there to defend it, what if that person's, at that point that's PvP, what if that person's a level 80 and you're a level 10? And levels doesn't matter. What I mean is,
right.
What if they're super
What if they're a
powerful?
whole lot more powerful than you are?
You may want to consider not trying to have a lot of land until you...
Yeah, you really may want to look at only owning land when you think you could defend it.
Yeah,
personally,
or afford it,
or afford it if you're hiring NPCs. Absolutely.
But at that point,
that is if you're with a guild only. If you're not with a guild, you're not going to have that hassle.
That's
right. If you're not with a guild, then remember this slider/knife switch. You just throw this down now, and then you're safe because there's not a medium. There's just up and down, and you've just set it to down.
I kind of like the idea of a band of low. I don't want to say low level. A band of newcomers to the game being able to turn into a guild. But I guess at that point, it's just as simple as not waging war against.
Sure,
right. Being smart.
Yeah, they can. I have no problem with them being able to form a guild the day they start the game. But at the same time, there are certain perks that I think
don't wage war.
Yeah, there are certain perks that I think come with experience, that come with gameplay. And I like rewarding people who have played. I don't want to hand every single benefit to the game to those people who just joined because I want to give them something to work for.
Yeah, it'd be kind of weird for a bunch of newcomers. Yeah, we're going to form a guild. Okay, we're all like, super new. We've only been playing a week. Let's wage war on Endgame. That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Endgame is a huge guild on our WoW server.
Yeah.
Or they were.
Yeah.
They were, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's pretty much my primary thoughts there. The only other thing, and this would be kind of a decision on our end. We just have to decide how you wanted to handle this. And that's terrible writing because it looks like the same letter. Could land be destroyed?
Oh, destroyed?
Destoried, maybe? Or properties, and this, either one. So land or properties. Basically, if I build a house, could that house be razed down to nothing by incoming fire so that I've got to build it up from absolutely scratch? Or does it just end up getting damaged to a point where I've got to get it repaired as opposed to completely rebuilt? The reason I throw this out is if you could throw a bunch of upgrades into your home, like, you get your communications antenna installed. You've built up your farm so that they allow you to do this, that, and the other. You've had extra wings bolted on so your friends can come over and have a hot tub party. But then somebody comes over and they cast, like, Rain of Fire, that cool warlock thing that they do in WoW where meteors come out of the sky and just pummel your house into a crater, and that's all you have left. Do you need to go buy all of those? You start up building your house again, then buy all your upgrades again, or or is there just, okay, here's your repair bill?
Boy, it would be horrible. Should have bought insurance.
Yeah. And that's another thing. But and we could just write that down. But what I was getting at was, do they get destroyed or do they just need repairs?
No, let's get Nelson's thoughts.
Why ask me?
Because I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, you know me. I don't like completely punishing people. I mean, if someone has spent a bunch of time and effort to configure a house,
couldn't they set that to low then? Their hostility.
Yep.
Yeah, but then they could get destroyed by another gang or.
Wait. How can it get destroyed by anybody if it's set to low and they're not in a guild?
But if they're in a guild,
but see, like Leonard said, and I do like that. It goes back to forcing players to make all sorts of decisions. Do you agree with what they want to do with war, or do you like your property more than you like the cause that the guild's fighting for? And you're like, screw it, I'm out of the guild.
I like that to an extent, but at some point, I would like some sense of security, and maybe that could be in the form of insurance.
Don't get in a guild that likes to go to war.
Or what about like force field generators or stuff to protect property?
The reason I bring it up is because I can see it from both angles.
Sure, so can I.
Look at gear in World of Warcraft. Mm-hmm. You have this chest plate that you got out of whatever dungeon. It's worth a whole bunch of money. That chest plate will never break and fall apart. Now, it may need a repair. It may get to the point where it's doing you absolutely no good because it needs repairing so bad.
Thank you for the money.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it's not like, and it's funny too because you're a clothy, right?
Yeah.
So you have all this cloth armor and you're taking fireballs. That stuff can get burnt into cinder, which is, it's nothing. It's gone. It's completely obliterated.
I wear magical robes.
Yeah, and then you just get it fixed and cha-ching. It's not like you have to go earn it again. And that's viable because you've worked really hard to get that piece of gear. Mm-hmm. Theoretically, you'd be working really, really hard to get this piece of property on your land, this house, this farm, whatever this is.
Taking what you're saying and mixing insurance in, the high-low slider and the Guild War thing makes a very interesting set of combinations. Mm-hmm. Because you could, let's say that you can attack someone's land and actually claim that land. The other people could start planning to claim it back. The nice thing is if it's insured, let's say I set my setting to high, so I'm getting a good yield, but I'm also using a good chunk of the money I'm making from the stuff that's being yielded that I'm benefiting from to pay this high insurance. I get attacked, I lose my land, I still get my money. So right. I now have this huge chunk of change.
So they claim.
I could submit a claim. I could go back and attack again to try to do, and that's just kind of mixing all of these things together. Or, I could see how they could all work together. Or you could be on high, say, screw insurance, I'm a cheap guy. Well, land gets destroyed, I get nothing in return, and now I have to pay for all that stuff to get built again.
An interesting way that I thought to look at it would be the question of what happens when land changes hands in a combative nature. Because if I'm blowing the hell out of your land because I want it, do I reward them by saying, all right, well, now all you've got is just to repair this awesome house, so instead of having to build it yourself? What I would say, and again, please shoot me down if you disagree, is that if you are able to fight off the attackers, your buildings and whatnot can't be destroyed, but they can require a crap ton of repair. So you don't have to start from ground zero, but you do have to get the stuff fixed. However, if somebody does manage to claim your land out from under you, in that process, your stuff got destroyed.
Yeah.
And they have to start over from square one.
Right. All they have left is the shape of the land. And
right. They got the land, though, so, it's not like they didn't get anything out of it. And an easy way to implement that just in terms of gameplay is... and this is only because I've seen it before, so if you can think of another one, please, let me know.
Oh, I thought you was making a slider.
No, not a slider. This is like in World of Warcraft, you have like the flag areas where you have to stand by the flag for X amount of time. So if you had something similar where, all of the systems you may have, fortifications, NPCs who are coming to attack, that could potentially respawn, by the way, those are constantly pummeling the enemy, trying to get them to go away or die or, something along those lines. But the whole time they're within X proximity of the heart of your land, this flag is constantly being lowered, or its value, or whatever, is constantly on its way down. If that reaches a level of neutrality, or down here at the bottom, then boom, that's it. They now control the land. That's just one possible way, because you can't to me it seems you can't just make it where if they blow everything up, they own it, because you may not be there to defend it. You might be in the middle of another quest. It's not like you're not playing the game, so I don't want to punish somebody if they're still playing the game. They just can't be right here at the time. So if it had some sort of time-based thing that required them to not only be on the attack, not only keep everything subdued, but to be, physically here at this one given spot for X amount of time, and even your presence, if you could at least be somewhere nearby, it keeps this from dropping as fast. It slows it down. So now they need to really be fighting you too. But anyway,
guys.
Now, this is only when a guild hostility is going on, right?
Or when
otherwise, you can't lose your place if you're not in a guild.
Well,
if you're high and you're a single person, that would mean you could have your property attacked and busted up, but I wouldn't see it being lost.
I would.
Right.
I would. I mean, that to me, and maybe this is where I concede to Nelson. Maybe this is where you have your medium setting, where it's like your medium is basically that
they can destroy it and it costs you a fortune to fix it all.
Yeah, it can't be taken.
High can be taken,
but they can take resources.
But they can take resources.
Yeah, it can't be taken, but it can be blown up. They can take all your stuff. But basically, all you'll get out of it is a repair bill.
I'll be dead honest. I like that low, medium, and high because it just makes the decision making from the player much more rich. Do you want to be really risque and let's set that puppy to high and crap? I lost my land. No different than going to Vegas and saying I'm putting $10 million on red. Let's do it.
Sure.
It could pay off big, and griefers could make your life miserable.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so that's cool. Putting it to high immediately allows you to position, or it auto places that, whatever.
Sure.
But
well, I mean, if you broke up the terrain so that you've got the place where you build your homestead, this is where you live, and then over here is where basically I would just always have it wherever your house is. That's the location. Period.
Yeah, that's something we can discuss.
Yeah, that's a really deep mechanic.
Yeah, I like that because. Going back to where Leonard was starting to sound a little scared for just a moment. It's like, I don't want to lose my land.
I don't want to lose my house.
Yeah, exactly. So that does give you the ability to be tacked, have some excitement, but not lose it all. Just cost you some money. So that you were trying to make more money with a little higher return from whatever it is you're farming or whatever's going on. But you don't run the risk of losing it all.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think that pretty much exhausts all of the notes that I had on the matter. I think the whole idea of farming could really be explored. I think what we've talked about here is a great place for it to start. You leave it at the idea of a block of land that produces something you need in the game. I think as that progressed, you could even turn it into a sub mini game unto itself.
There is one final thing. I did not want to turn this into a technical discussion as far as the hows, because I've got really good ideas, both Lee and I do, for this all being very, very feasible. But I do want to point this out for anyone who's listening and for you guys as well. And this is going to go into a discussion dealing with employment in the game world itself. But I still think that, and we're not even going to talk about how homes are built and out of what materials and what they look like.
Right.
But I still think that all construction that's taken place must still be approved. So if you want to add that one down, basically all construction must be approved by the corporation that oversees that's selling that particular land, if it's a corporation. But construction must be approved.
In what way?
Well, we don't want somebody to buy land and put a giant penis on it.
Okay, but what are they building? Now, are you just talking sculpting the land, or are you talking, like, can people go into, say, 3ds Max and build their own house?
No, and I have ideas on how I want to handle all the modeling stuff, but that's what I'm considered part of technical, which we'll get to a little bit later.
But, I mean, I guess theoretically, I could put a bunch of tough sheds in the shape of a penis.
You could. That's why we need to both construction of what you're talking about.
Right.
Stop with the ideas of penis sheds.
If you wanted to go through all the effort of turning a shed or multiple sheds in the shape of a penis, I say that you deserve it.
Of course you do, Nelson. But some mother watching their kid play the game who's now flying over your land on their way somewhere, flying over a giant penis, and you can't really make out that it's sheds.
Well, the other way too, and this may be a good way to do it or a bad way, because I like trying to find as many ways as we can not to have to be involved.
Right.
You could just let it take its course, but you just basically say there's an agreement that we may end up having to reset your land if you do anything inappropriate. Right now, they will allow you to name your character like, Murder Rape 9000 if you want. But if somebody finds out that you've named that and they report you, you're going to get banned.
Yeah, well, they do have some algorithms in place.
I know they've got some.
Much of it out. I would really want to. And again, this is something that I saw as part of employment, because I don't see us starting a game and it being filled with like WoW. I don't see us with 100,000 people in it.
Not on day one.
And no, and so I can't remember what it was with Aeon. I think Aeon allowed people to design their guild tabards.
Yeah,
and that wasn't monitored at first, and they had to end up killing that out because the very first one was a giant penis.
Right.
And it will happen for sure. So that one would be one that I would simply say must be approved somewhere. Otherwise, it will be trouble that we're headed for.
Sure.
And I do agree with you. If it's turned down because of something like all that, they lose it.
A flip side to that would be just to keep it so that I don't have to worry about, like, let's say we get backed up. A way to make it to where I can get something in that doesn't necessarily have to worry about approval is if you had some prefabricated kind of stuff.
And that gets into the technical stuff. We are going to.
Okay.
That's how I'm going to do it.
Because, right now, the big thing they can influence is the shape of their terrain on the land that they own, the placement of buildings and all that.
Sure.
But let's say, I can choose to have something completely customized and be like, actually, plot C from the catalog here looks perfect. Give me one of those. And that shouldn't need approval.
I'm actually thinking a little bit more flexibility than that, where they're going to have some building tools, some building Legos that they can work with, and they can be creative in how they build with those on the land, but nothing that is being modeled externally and submitted.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying, though. Because, even if you're using in-game tools and only things that we've already built, like I said, you could line up your tough sheds to form anything, right?
Absolutely.
But if you... Let's say if the idea of the approval process just makes me roll my eyes and get a little sick to my stomach, I could grab one of the prefab layouts.
Sure.
Okay. And just choose that. That's all I'm saying. Have something available where it's where you could bypass the approval system because we've got some pre-approved layouts.
Absolutely. But I think with people being able to control the construction of stuff, I think it just makes the world, again, dynamic, where we never know what we're going to see exploring around an adventure.
You know, it'd be an interesting thing, too.
What's that?
If you just worked on the concept of precedence. So if somebody, like if your design gets approved, that whole design you just created gets added to the catalog.
True.
So somebody sees that and be like, hey, that's cool. It's already been approved. That saves us work. Boom, grab that.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
that's a cool idea. Anything else that you guys would like to throw in as far as real estate is concerned?
The only thing I'd be concerned with the pre-approved plots is how to adjust that with the layout of the terrain, height and stuff. Unless you're talking about actually terraforming the terrain to match that exact layout.
I had actually thought that is what we were talking about. I thought we were giving people terrain sculpting tools to do stuff like that.
We are. I'm talking about both.
Yeah.
What I was talking about a second ago was actually the Legos not being terrain sculpting tools, but the Legos being what they can use to build buildings and stuff out of. Let's just say that Lee is something we'll have to visit when we come back to this as a technical discussion.
Right. Well, at worst, though, all you'd be changing is the elevation of those buildings, which shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, just flattening the ground underneath them directly.
Yeah, we would basically match terrain, but we would average it to a height where it wouldn't kill surrounding patches or something. But again, I don't want to get off.
Put a question forward.
I definitely like the idea of our first topic. I think we're at a good closing point for the general discussion.
Yeah, I haven't come across any ideas here that I just absolutely hated and I think need to be shot down, and anybody needs to be lynched or anything.
No. And all of it, I think, can be made to make the game much more interesting. And we can see where it's beneficial to own land. You could even pick somebody out once a month who has the most awesome real estate or whatever, then they're in the news, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, there's so many things we can do with this, but getting this into the game would make it, I think, a lot of fun. I would enjoy it personally. Mm-hmm. And we need a larger world to do this. You're not going to have something like this in WoW. Not if we had a lot of people playing. But anyways.
You could do it all in half a Northrend if you only had a couple people playing.
Exactly. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add, or let's go ahead and close this one out?
I move that we go ahead and close it.
All right, guys. Well, that is going to wrap this video up, and we will see you over in the next one where we're going to be begin discussion on one of two different topics, whether environments or travel, and we'll figure out which one between videos here. So we'll see you guys there. Thanks a lot.